Have you ever gotten off? Pause. Have you ever gotten done with a long day of work and thought to yourself, man, I'd really like to kick back and play some video games right now? I found myself in this situation not too long ago, but I didn't know what to play. So I did what I always do when I don't know what to play. I scrolled through my PlayStation collection to see if anything really catches my eye. But while scrolling this time, I noticed an alarming trend. It seemed like a lot of my games were just remasters. Not new games, just remasters of old games. And I kept looking and I kept seeing remaster after remaster after remaster, and it just implanted remasters into my brain. I could not get it out. So I had to find some answers. And find those answers, I did. With very little research and a whole lot of vibes, I have now become an absolute expert in remastering video games. I learned what remasters are, why they're made, and maybe even some solutions to the problem. So buckle in, because today we will be going over all of that. Now, the first thing we need to do is discuss what a remaster actually is. Now, on the surface, you may be thinking to yourself, Pat, that's a simple question with a simple answer. A remaster is when they have an old game and then they just make it again for new hardware. To which I would say, yes, you are correct. That is essentially what a remaster is. So don't get fooled by all the marketing here. They like to slap cute little names on these things, but don't be fooled. So things like Enhanced Edition, Collector's Edition, Legendary Edition, Director's Cut, Remaster, Remake, they're all just remasters for the most part, except there are two categories I think we can break this down into a little further. The first being your classic remaster, and then the second being the remake. Now, a remaster, if you think of it in terms of remodeling your house, it's essentially when you want to do a little bit of work, but you don't really want to, really get to the nitty gritty of busting down walls and all that kind of stuff. So what do? You go into your kitchen and you rip up those crusty linoleum floors and then replace everything else in the kitchen with chrome or something. I don't honestly know how to remodel a house or kitchen because I live in an apartment, so that's an issue. The point is, what the developers will do is make some small minor tweaks and then send the game out for new hardware. Now, what are these minor tweaks? For a long time, the minor tweaks were essentially just that the developers would up-res the graphics. Now, they would always put this cute little picture up there where they'd show like, hey, this is what the game used to look like, and hey, this is what the game looks like now. And I have to be honest, I've never really noticed a huge difference in the side-by-side photos. Further, I've not really noticed a huge difference in the games when I've been playing them. I recently played through the Ezio Collection. So what Ubisoft did here is remastered their 3 games around their most famous assassin, Ezio Auditore, not to be confused with the other famous Italian assassin. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to rein it in real quick. So what they did was remaster Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, slap the Ezio Collection on it, and then send it back out to the masses. This edition boasted new enhanced graphics. I played through them recently, and I've got to say I did not notice a huge difference in the graphics. I had a great time playing the games, don't get me wrong. I had a blast running through the countryside of Italy, the cities, and also going to Constantinople, assassinating people, jumping in hay bales, all that fun stuff. I had a great time. But I didn't notice a huge difference in what the remasters look like and what my memory of the first games was. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, hey, dummy, the best point of reference for what the first games actually looked like is not your memory of the first games, it's the actual first games. To which I would say, good point. Undoubtedly, the best point of reference for me to know what the first games look like is to go play the first games. However, I don't have access to the first games anymore because in my stupid youth, I thought it would be a great deal to sell the original 3 games and my PlayStation 3 to GameStop for around $30 because I'm a very smart businessman. So the only thing I have access to is the Ezio Collection. And if the developers cannot trick my brain into thinking that they've made some huge technical leap with the graphics, then I don't think it justifies its own existence simply for the increased graphics. Now, another thing that developers will do from time to time when remastering a game, especially more recently, is they will increase the FPS of the game. And this, folks, is where my ears really perk up. Hearing the phrase increased FPS gets me more excited than your Aunt Deborah going on her 5th date to Chili's this month. No shade to your Aunt Deborah, of course. FPS, or frames per second, essentially translates to how smooth the game is going to feel when you play it. So if you play a game at say 30 FPS, it's going to feel a lot better if you play it again at 120 FPS, let's say. Now the problem with that though is that up until recently, it was very hard for console players to get games to run at anything higher than 30 FPS. It was really only in the last few years that console players were able to play games at least 60 frames a second. So what developers have done is take some of their old games, remaster them by increasing the frame rate from 30 to say 60 FPS, and then send those back out. Increasing the FPS feels way better to me than simply increasing the graphics. It's basically like a new coat of paint with the graphics. But with the FPS, the games feel more like games that are actually coming out now, so there's not as much of a difference between the two when you actually play them. However, even this comes with some issues. So let's take The Last of Us Part 2, for example. I love The Last of Us Part 2, but your personal feelings on the game don't really matter in this instance. I think if you don't like it, you're just wrong, but that's neither here nor there. The Last of Us Part 2 released in 2020 for the PS4 and ran at a not-so-crisp 30 FPS. Later on, though, in 2021, after the PS5 was released, Naughty Dog released a free PlayStation 5 update for their PS4 game. So what this did was essentially up-res the graphics a little bit, I believe, but the main selling point was that it now ran at 60 frames a second. This was a pretty big deal because when you go from playing a game at 30 FPS to 60, you're really going to notice the difference. Like I said, it's going to feel a lot smoother. When Naughty Dog released this free update, I played through the game and I had a great time again, and it was awesome. It felt better. It was more responsive. I was having a great time running through Seattle, just, doing questionable things, we'll say. But regardless, the game felt better with the free update. Then in 2024, Naughty Dog released a Last of Us Part 2 remastered. Now, this is where I have some issues because essentially what Naughty Dog did was take that free update and then just repackage it and then sell it again. It's not really the money that matters. I get that it was only $10 for previous owners. I think it may have been $40 if you didn't own the game, or it may have even been full price. The money is not what's important to me. What's important to me is that I was very disappointed in Naughty Dog for re-releasing a game that they had just done the free update for just a few years before. I don't understand why they needed to do this other than to make more money off The Last of Us IP. That is the only thing I can really think of here, and it's disappointing to me when companies choose to do things simply for profit, and I think it just cheapens The Last of Us Part 2, in my eyes, the more times it is released. Now, this problem is a little specific to The Last of Us Part 2. I understand that there are some older games that came out for maybe the PS3 and the Xbox 360 that they can't just release an update to get them to 60 frames a second. They have to release a whole new version to get them to 60 frames a second. And I don't have as big of an issue with those kind of remaster because, like I said, it feels better to play. I would still prefer that they release a new game in the series, but I have less of a gripe for the increased frames per second for a game that they can't just release an update for. The second category are the remakes, and these are much better received by the public. If you think about it in the terms of remodeling a house, the remake would be when you strip the house down to the studs and then you start to rebuild from just the bones of the house. Don't know if that's how you actually do it with a house, but for games it makes sense. The three remakes that I can think of off the top of my head in recent years are the Demon's Souls remake for the PlayStation 5 launch, the Dead Space remake, and then the Final Fantasy VII remake. Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997, and while each game in the Final Fantasy series has been a hit on its own, Final Fantasy VII was the one that I always heard about. People who played this game would not shut up about it. And you know what? I'm glad they didn't shut up about it. I'm glad they didn't shut up about it because all the hype around a game that old just continued to carry it in the zeitgeist. Now, I was not old enough to play Final Fantasy VII when it released, because I was filling my Pampers with poo and whatnot. But all this hype that had been built around the game for so many years, when they announced the remake, I was definitely interested and wanted to check it out. So when the remake was released, I did check it out and I had a great time. I finally understood what everyone was talking about when they just gush about this game. I saw the characters. I saw Barrett, Tifa, Cloud, Aerith, all of them for the first time. I got to see the Buster Sword. I heard those just iconic melodies play where they were actually supposed to be played in the game. It was amazing. I loved every second of it. I don't think I would have gotten that same visceral feeling if I would have just went back and replayed the original game. Now, maybe I would have. If you're a fan of the original game, don't come after me. I get it. But in today's climate, I would much prefer to play a basically new version of Final Fantasy VII that's indistinguishable from other games that are coming out, as opposed to going back and playing the very dated, at this point, game. That is why remakes are better received, because you can really tell that the developers have put a lot of care into this game and they have essentially made it new again. Whereas a simple remaster is just a new coat of paint on what we've already played. I feel a lot better paying money for a remake as opposed to a remaster. Now that we've covered the remaster and the remake, it's time to move on to the why. Why do companies do this? And my friends, you may be shocked to find the truth. The answer probably won't actually shock you, because the answer is money. The reason why games continue to be re-released on remasters is the same reason why we get a new Jurassic Park or World movie every few years. I mean, honestly, I don't need to see another one of these movies where the dinosaurs break out of their cages and then everyone gets real shocked when they start eating people. I mean, who are these idiots? Did they not see the other 15 movies? But regardless, I'm not going to get derailed by Jurassic Park. Intellectual property is very valuable. It comes with an established fan base. Games have a leg up on movies here, though, because a movie needs to release a new movie each time. So this summer or whenever, when the next Jurassic Park movie comes out, when you see it, a lot of people will say like, oh, Jurassic Park, I know that. I'll go see that movie. Games don't have to release a whole new game, though. It would be nice if they did, but they don't have to. What games can do is release a remaster of a game you've already played. So 2K is able to say, hey, we have Bioshock. You like Bioshock. You played it. You had a great time. Come play it again. Give us some more money to play it again. Now, are we really going to do this? Are we really going to give them money for a game we already played? Yes, we are, my friends, because they are tricking us with the power of science known as nostalgia. I don't know what the actual scientific term for this is. If you do, maybe comment down below and teach us all something. That would be great. The point is, they are tricking us with nostalgia. Now, how do they do this? Nostalgia is very powerful, because we tend to look back on the past with rose-tinted glasses on, remembering only the good times and not the bad times. And we all want to go back and remember the good old days. If a company has a game that came out for the good old days for us, whatever that vague term means, now what you'll do is you'll see the game on the store after they've remastered it and say, oh, I remember that game. I really liked it. I want to play it again. Now, I don't have any data to back this up, so don't come for me, science people. I'm going based on vibes here, baby. I would venture a guess, though, that we are more willing to go back and play that old game because subconsciously our brain is doing all the jumping jacks for us to go say, hey, yes, I played that game in 2011 and my life was way better in 2011 than it is today, so let me go back and play that game. Maybe my life will improve. And in doing so, the studio has now gotten money from you for something that you already paid them for. And I do this too. I don't want this to come across as like I'm talking down to you like you shouldn't be buying remakes. I buy these remasters too. But that is one reason as to why they're made. Because companies want to make more money off the IP that they've already made, and it's way easier to simply send out an old game as a remaster as opposed to make a whole new game in that IP, or even make a totally new IP. The second reason why remasters come out is maybe a company has a dormant IP that they want to revive. Mass Effect is a wildly successful franchise. The first 3 games are wildly successful. We will not talk about Andromeda. She's been through enough. We'll leave her where she belongs. But BioWare is interested in making a Mass Effect 5. However, they don't want to dump a whole bunch of money into this and then realize, oh, no one actually cares about Mass Effect anymore. Well, what are we going to do? We just sunk, $250 million or whatever into Mass Effect 5. So is there a good way for us to gauge audience's interest in Mass Effect? Yes, there is. Through Mass Effect, the Legendary Collection. Now, they released a trailer saying that Mass Effect will continue, which trailers are a good way to gauge hype because you can count the views and all that. But I think a much more valuable way is to release the Legendary Edition and say, hey, we sold X number of copies of the Legendary Edition. People are still interested in Mass Effect. Let's make another one. But maybe there's another reason why companies do this. Maybe it's not about money. It's not about checking the temperature of an audience. Maybe, and this is incredibly naive of me, I do understand that. But maybe developers just want more people to experience their stories who didn't get to experience it in the past. Let's say that you were too young to have experienced the masterpiece that is Batman Arkham City when it released in 2011. It released in the fall, and it was like right around Halloween. I think it was about a month before Halloween, and it was an awesome fall. I mean, awesome. My friends were like, hey, Pat, come on, we're going to the football game. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to the football game. I'm playing Batman Arkham City because I'm like that, baby. I'm like that. Anyway, Batman Arkham City allowed you to glide around Gotham, see the Gothic architecture, grapple up and down the buildings, fight the Joker and other famous villains. It was just an amazing game. It had a really great story. It was something that hooked me from the very beginning, and a game that I still think about to this day. But maybe you were too young to experience it when it came out. Maybe Batman Arkham City is your Final Fantasy VII. Rocksteady then releases Batman the Arkham Collection, which allows you not only to play Arkham City, but also Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight as well. This is a great deal for you. You get to be fully immersed in these amazing 3 games and have a blast. I mean, just go nuts with it. But I question if that is happening. Now, aside from Kai Cenat playing through them recently, which was pretty cool, I did enjoy that, but I have serious questions about if remasters like this are bringing new players in, because the Batman Arkham Collection only runs at 30 frames a second. Now, back in 2011, this was not a big deal because all games ran at 30 FPS basically, especially for console, and it was fine. You know, it was all good. We could just play it, no worries. I recently went back and tried to replay Arkham City, and I gotta say, I did not get very far. I think I got about 3 hours in to where the nostalgia wore off and the frames really started to kick in, and I just could not deal with it anymore. Now, maybe if I would have just pushed through that, I would have been able to continue to play it and have a good time. I don't know. I'm just wondering if new players would be willing to experience the loss of frame rate in a climate when there are brand new games coming out that have way better frames and feel better to play. So I just don't know that that's actually bringing people to the table, but maybe I'm wrong. If you have played a remastered version of a game that you did not get to play when it came out, comment down below and let me know what it was and if you enjoyed it. The only thing left for us at this point is to decide what the solution is, or if we even need a solution at all. I gotta be honest, I don't know the answer here, because I'm not against remasters just as a concept. It can be a lot of fun to go replay an old game. Nostalgia is not necessarily a bad thing. Another point I want to make is the tone of this video is not that gaming is dead. That, you know, no new games are coming out. It's all just remasters, like everything's on fire, everything sucks, it's all just old games. That is not true. New games, even in established IPs, come out every year, and there's always some hits each and every year. The market has just been more saturated with remasters. And while I don't know what to do about it particularly, I do know that this is going to keep happening. It's far too easy, far too profitable for studios to just release their old games because people will buy them. I buy them. When looking through my collection, I noticed that I have probably 30 remasters, so I will definitely buy them. What I'm going to try to do moving forward is be a little more selective with the remasters that I choose to buy, because while looking through all the remasters that I had, I noticed that I had maybe played through 4 of them all the way through again. So I essentially bought them for the nostalgia, played them maybe for a little bit, and then just forgot about them. Moving forward, I'm going to be a little more selective and try to only buy remasters I know I'm actually going to play. I could tell you that we need to vote with our wallets and stop buying remasters. La-dee-da. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your hard-earned money. The fact of the matter is that life can really suck sometimes, and nostalgia can feel good. If playing Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy for a few hours gives you some happiness, then knock yourself out. Do whatever you want. What I would like to see moving forward is that studios focus more on remakes and not just remasters, but who knows if that'll happen. It seems like remasters are much easier to make, so I would assume I would assume that the majority of what we're getting in the terms of remaster or remakes are just going to be remasters moving forward. But I'm interested in your thoughts on the matter. So why don't you comment down below? Do you think this is a problem? Do you think this is not a problem? Do you think this is the biggest problem facing gaming now and we must do something to stop it? Let me know down below. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have covered remasters, and our time today has come to an end. And you know, it's sad. I'm sad. I know you're sad. It's okay though. You don't have to be sad. There are plenty of other videos on my channel that you will enjoy, so be sure to check those out. However, before you click off this video, I would really appreciate it if you would do the YouTube things. You know, like, comment, subscribe, all that would be greatly appreciated. I also want to let you know that I stream on Twitch. I'm a variety streamer, so what I'll essentially do is just play whatever game I'm feeling like that day and just ramble on about video games. So if that's something you're interested in, the link is of course down in the description below. However, if you would rather me just put the fries in the bag, no worries at all. I hope you all have a beautiful time, and I will see you all in the next one.